Hello, everybody, and welcome to my draft breakdown for the League of Extraordinary Trainers Season 1. This is a draft league based on the GBA Season 7 tiers, with allowing a few Ubers mons thrown in, or mons that will be banned in regular draft leagues. These were Aegislash, Ash Greninja, Mega Kangaskhan, Gothitelle, Hoopa Unbound, Tapu Lele, and Magearna. And so, going into things, I was the 13th pick overall, which was pretty low because I got a low roll on. We used a D&D dice to determine who would get what spots, and the lower your roll, the higher your slot on the draft order. And so I got 13th overall, and I really wasn't expecting that many good things to drop to me out of 16 people. But I ended up getting something pretty good with our first pick, so we'll just move on to that. So at 13th, I actually managed to grab Magearna. I was hoping and praying that I would be able to pick up Magearna, and it ended up falling right into my lap somehow. The people before me picked things like Protean Greninja. There was a Tyranitar at second overall. Ferrothorn and Volcarona also went in round one before me somehow. And the first overall pick was actually Tapu Koko, which I found very interesting considering all of the OP things that were up. So Magearna is a very versatile mon. It doesn't really have too many problems. It's got like the second highest usage in OU at the moment behind Landorus Therian, I think. So that's really good. It's also a really good Z user because it gets such good coverage options that it just like uses Z moves really well. Shift gear setup sets can abuse its ability Soul Heart really well because once you kill something, you basically kill someone else's team. The only thing sort of hindering it in that space is that its speed is pretty low, so you kind of have to run like timid to make it work well in that sense. It's got a huge special attack stat at 130, and it just like gets really good with Soul Heart boosts. Its defenses are also really good, so it can tank hits relatively well. You pretty much will never see him going to get one shot by any neutral hit, as long as something isn't set up with like a Swords Dance or anything. It's good. So because I was 13th pick and picked up Magearna, I got my hopes up, thinking that the three people under me would be not as smart with their drafts as the other people above me were. Oh, Landorus Incarnate. That was, yes. So my next pick, I had planned to be Landorus Incarnate, but it was actually picked up on the wheel, I believe. So the 16th pick got Landorus Incarnate, or the 15th pick, I can't remember. So I got sniped with that. And then my next option after that was Tapu Fini, and someone sniped me with that. And my next option after that was Kieran Black, and someone sniped me on that. Somehow Kieran Black sat there until round two. I'm not sure how. But then this monster came up in round two, and I was like, how is this still up as well? We actually picked up Manaphy, which is absolutely disgusting, and it synergizes really well with Magearna. Magearna's fire weakness, Manaphy tanks. Um, I think that's it. I can't. Yeah, Magearna's fire weakness, Manaphy tanks those hits. Oh, and Manaphy's grass weakness, Magearna tanks those hits. So they synergize pretty well together. Manaphy's obviously a pixie Pokemon, so it's got base 100 in every single stat. It's not the greatest physical attacker because it doesn't get the best physical moves, and it doesn't get physical setup. It would be better if it got physical setup on the physical side, I think, because it gets things like Calm Mind and Tail Glow. It's one of two Pokemon that get Tail Glow, or three, between Volbeat, Illumise, and Manaphy. I can't remember if Illumise gets it. I know Volbeat gets it. So it's a really good special setup mon, good coverage options, Energy Ball, Surf, HP Electric, standard sets that you would run with it. It's also really bulky because it's a base 100 mon, so you can just run it like max HP Bold, max HP Calm, and steamroll through teams after setting up on them. So I was really happy to get Manaphy. I think it's a steal at 19th or 20th overall, I think. It's pretty good. I'm really happy to be using it as well. I think it's gonna fit well on this team. I think complementing Magearna. Well, you guys will see as we keep going through. Um, So with that, I had two tier 1 picks. Each of them was worth 180, but Manaphy was my first free pick because we were only allowed one tier 1. So at this point in the draft, I only have 220 points left, and I kind of knew what I wanted for the rest of the draft, and I was planning on taking a tier 2 Mega uh, because I wanted to get some extra points, and a tier 2 Mega gives you an extra 40 points in this sort of draft format. So by taking a tier 2 Mega, I would have put myself at 260 free points, and therefore given myself the opportunity later in the draft to take a third tier 1 pick, which was initially my plan, but we'll see what happens with that later. So my tier 2 Mega pick, and it's unbelievable that this is even a tier 2 Mega pick because it can go like really fast in some drafts. I know in the WBE this was like the first overall pick of the entire draft. So I managed to grab Mega Latios with my third overall pick, and it just blows my mind that this is a tier 2 Mega in the first place. It's got a huge attack set of 130, huge attack set of special attack set of 160, really good speed tier at 110 because it can outspeed base 108s, which is actually a fairly common speed tier. And its defenses are also really good. Like maybe it's got an okay HP stat, but its defenses are super good. Also, the ability to levitate, it's insane. Like having a ground immunity for Magearna right off the bat was just absolutely huge. Absolutely huge. Megalodios was a huge steal. I've talked to many people about my draft since, many experienced battlers about my draft since I drafted it. And I also want to shout out my boy Cade or Frostfire14 for helping me pull out a draft plan for this. Most of it was my work, but he threw in some really good ideas that I took and ran with. And everyone's like, "Oh, you've got the best core in this entire league," and I think it's true. Um, no one inside the league is mentioning me at all, but they are going to be super scared when they face my team. So that's Megalodios. Oh, with my fourth pick, I really wanted a better hazard remover than just Megalodios because I don't want to have to rely on Megalodios running defog every week. I think that's not the best use for a Megalodios. So I ended up picking up my first tier 3 mon. I dipped down to tier 3 because everyone else had been going into tier 2, and I was like, I'm going to save my tier 2 for later. I have something in mind. I don't think anyone's going to snipe it from me, so we're just going to grab our first tier 3, which was Delmise. Now, Delmise is a really good rapid spinner. Its attack stat is huge at 131. Its defense stat is really good at 100. I'm surprised that its special attack stat is so much and its special defense because I find that it can't really take special hits well or dish out special hits very well either. It's got a really lackluster speed. That's, just a general gist of Delmise. With the ability Steelworker, it turns Steel-type moves into Stab. So Delmise actually has triple Stab with Ghost, Grass, and Steel, which is actually pretty decent coverage. It hits almost everything. Mm, I don't know. I'm sort of thinking that this wasn't the right pick at the time. Decidueye was also open, and I could have grabbed Decidueye. I'm thinking now that round 4 was a little bit early to grab Decidueye or Delmise because Decidueye was actually grabbed later on in the draft, about round 8-ish or round 7. I can't remember off the top of my head. Um, but it gives me hazard removal and it gives me a spin blocker, which was really important because for my setup sweepers like Magearna, Manaphy, and Megalodios, it's really important that I have rocks up to start chipping down on things so that they can sweep, and it's really important that those rocks stay up. So I decided to pick my second tier 3 because you always pick two tier 3 mons, and so let's see what we grab. We grab Rotom-Heat. Um, it's not the greatest typing, but with the ability Levitate, it's another ground immunity, which actually eliminates its 4 times weakness to ground, so that's really good. It only has a weakness to rock and water. Rock and water, I believe, are its only 2 weaknesses because electric is only weak to ground. Really good defense stat, really good special attack stat, really good special defense stat, and it was a mid-tier speed tier, which is what I wanted because Magearna's on the slower side, Delmise is really slow, Latios is on the faster side, Manaphy's on the faster side, so I wanted something in the middle. It's a good electric type as well. I needed a good Volt Switch user, electric type user. Rotom-Heat can be run defensively as well, so that's really good. Again, we're sort of building on the synergies here. Like Rotom-Heat can eat the grass moves that Manaphy can't eat and stuff like that. It can switch on the ground moves that Magearna can't take. Sorry about that. And so after Rotom, I wanted to dive into Tier 4, I believe. Nope, I lied. I went up to Tier 2. Sorry about that. Went back up to Tier 2 to grab the Tier 2 pick that I didn't think was going to go, but it was actually sort of being threatened around this time in the draft, so I decided to pick it up quickly. Mamoswine, which, oh my goodness, Mamoswine. This thing is a freaking monster. It just destroys faces. It's absolutely disgusting. Huge attack stat, the huge HP stat. The rest of the stats are kind of mediocre, especially that base 80 speed. It's sort of in like Rotom-Heat area, but man, this thing gets Ice Shard for priority. Um, it doesn't get the best coverage, but man, its stab moves are amazing. Um, Oblivious makes it so that Mamoswine can't be taunted to set up rocks. Snowcloak means that evasion is boosted in hail. Thick Fat reduces fire and ice weaknesses. Um, so Mamoswine can also tank those fire moves. Not well, mind you, but if it's running Thick Fat, it can tank fire moves pretty well. It's also a good rocker. I needed a hazard setter at this point in the draft. Mamoswine's not necessarily the mon that I would want to be setting rocks every week because it's so powerful with like a life orb choice scarf sort of thing. You really want it to be hitting people with moves rather than like using stealth rock. That's the basic gist for Mamoswine. So at this point, I dove down into tier 4. I had something on my mind. You can see my team's like kind of slow. Base 110's the fastest we have right now, and that's not really great. I'd like something faster. So I end up picking the thing that's tied for the, well, you'll see. So we grab a Selgor here, my boy Kakashi, and it's really fast. Base 145 is disgusting. I grabbed a Selgor because it's another hazard setter. It's fast spikes. It can hit really hard with Bug Buzz. It actually has a decent coverage. I didn't know this until I started team building for week 1. But it gets Water Shuriken, which is supposed to be Greninja's signature move. So I'm not sure how a Selgor gets it. Maybe because it's a ninja too. Um, so that's really cool actually. It's good water coverage for bug type that can use it against fire types. It's like, it's a low base power move, but it's still good. Hydration, same ability as Manaphy. Yeah, Sticky Hold actually is really useful because it means you can't get knocked off, like your item stays with you. And Unburden, I mean, it's such a fast mon that doesn't really need Unburden. I think that's kind of like there. It's just there. Like you lose your item and then you're double the speed. It's crazy. Like if you're running any sort of speed on a Selgor and you have Unburden, you're just gonna outspeed everything Scarf. A Selgor, um, I think Mudsdale had picked up Mega Beedrill before this, or maybe after this, and a Selgor and Mega Beedrill are the two fastest mons in the entire league right now. Like no one drafted anything faster. I don't even know if there's anything faster to be honest, but like I was really happy to pick up a Selgor. I had my eyes on this from the absolute beginning as my main hazard setter. I wanted to take the pressure off of Mamoswine. Yeah, and then I picked up another hazard setter. I actually dove down for my tier 5 right here. I picked up Rhydon, which is so bulky. This thing, pop an Eviolite on it. I mean, its special defense is pretty awful, and it kind of sucks that it has two 4x weaknesses to water and grass, which are typically run as special typings, so it's pretty much going to die to those. But it's actually got a massive attack stat. You can run like a double dance Rhydon, and it puts in work. I think for the most part with this team, Rhydon's going to be a defensive pivot to put up rocks and stuff like that. It's good setup. A lot of teams in this league don't actually have any Edgequake switch-ins, so it's gonna probably put in work. Like you'll see Rhydon getting some kills this season. It's gonna be good. Um, that's the basic gist. This was a round 5 pick. Then I think I went in. Ah, yes, I know what next. My team, we've got a lot of damage. We've got a lot of hazard setters now. I needed like a cleric to start healing up my walls, and because my walls don't have any recovery right now. Like Rhydon, you put an Eviolite on it, can't even run leftovers. So I ended up grabbing Licky Licky, which is my favorite wall in the entire game. This thing is bulky. It actually has really good attack and special attack. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say really good. It's average attack and special attack, which is really good for a wall. Um, yeah, Licky Licky is gonna put in some work this season. Wish passing, it's a cleric with heal bell. You can pop a band on there and like put fire punch on it, and all of a sudden it's a counter to Ferrothorn. Like this thing is a monster. Banded rollout, for example, is something that could just like steamroll a team with no rock switch-ins. And I'm really excited about the ability Cloud9 actually, because there are three weather teams in this league right now. It's really interesting how the archetypes sort of played out, but one guy drafted full rain. He has both rain setters. Another guy drafted Alolan Ninetales with Aegislash, which is very threatening. And another guy drafted a sand team. Excuse me. So I'm really excited to use Cloud9 Licky Licky because it can just get that weather away, and all of a sudden the weather isn't a threat anymore. It's also really cool that Licky Licky gets Oblivious because then enemy mons can't taunt it from using like Wish or Heal Bell or any of the cleric moves, because it's such a slow speed tier at base 50. So this was a tier 5 free pick, which is only 40 points. So that was essentially my Mega Latios turned into a Licky Licky later. So now at this point in the draft, there's 2 picks left, and I have 220 points to work with. And so my decision tree came down to, do I pick another tier 1 and a tier 5? And I had some things in mind for that, including Mew, Jirachi, and Thundurus Therian were all still on the board for tier 1 at this point. Actually, Hoopa Unbound, which went undrafted, was still on the board at this point. And so I had this idea that I was going to do Thundurus Therian and Primeape because I still needed a fast fighting type, and I wanted another ground immunity and a faster speed tier in Thundurus Therian. But Thundurus Therian's actually only a 101 base speed, and Primeape's only a 95 base speed, and so I found a combination that gave me better speed tiers and cost the same amount of points. Now, granted, this is a tier 2 and a tier 3 instead of a tier 1 and a tier 5, so it's, in my mind, it's actually a slightly better deal, and I get the better speed tiers out of it. So let's check out the tier 2 that I drafted. I'm really glad that I drafted this when I did, actually, because it was about to be taken 2 picks after me. So I grabbed Mimikyu. Mimikyu, there's like nothing to say about Mimikyu pretty much. It's so good. Ghost and Fairy typing. I needed another Fairy type besides Magearna to complete my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. Because you can't really have a Fairy Dragon Steel Core with just 2 mons. It gets priority in Shadow Sneak, disguises a free Focus Sash where you're taking no damage. Like, its attack stat is pretty huge. It may hold a Z Crystal this season at some point for Never Ending Nightmare action, Z Destiny Bond. I mean, Mimikyu's pretty good. I mean, we've seen it in VGC 17 and stuff like that. Like, this mon's it was a steal. And base 96 speed, I mean, it's faster than the Primeape that I was gonna pick up by 1 point. So, that's something. But it really comes down to my last pick. I wasn't really threatened by my last pick. I didn't think that anyone was going to snipe it from me. Only 3 people had the option to snipe it from me anyways. There were only 3 other people in the entire draft left that had enough free points to pick up tier 3 or higher. And so I ended up grabbing my fast fighting type in Mienshao. Now, I really love Mienshao. Regenerator with U-turn is so good. Reckless high jump kicks. Like, this mon has a really good attack stat. It's a really good speed tier, 105 speed tier instead of Thundurus's 101 speed tier. So I ended up gaining an extra 5 speed points and getting the fast fighting type that I wanted. Now, granted, it's not like Defiant Primeape, which kind of would have been fun to use, but Regenerator is like just as good. Mienshao gets priority like Fake Out. I think that's about it. It gets really good fighting type coverage, Drain Punch, Low Kick, High Jump Kick. It's a good knockoff user. It's another knockoff user with Mammoth which is really good. It's always good to have a knockoff user on your team because items in League format are so strong. That's pretty much the breakdown for Mienshao. And then now I'll just quickly touch on Z Captains and we'll be done. So in this league we have Z Captains. You get 100 Z points to work with. An A tier costs 80 points, B costs 60, C costs 50, D costs 40, E costs 20. So you can use any combination of that within your 100 Z points. You don't even have to use multiple Z users. You don't have to declare multiple Z users if you don't want to. It's just the better strategy because then your opponent has more to prepare for. So I looked at it, I looked at my team, and I was like, I have 5 viable Z users. Magearna and Manaphy, both AT Z users. Mamoswine and Mimikyu, both BT Z users. Now, granted, Mamoswine is not the greatest Z user anyways, because it already hits so hard. But it would be nice to put on like Z Hail or something one week. And Mimikyu obviously is a good Z user. Manaphy, just regular Hydro Vortex is really strong, or Z Rain Dance can be really strong too, and Magearna uses any kind of Z move like super well. And then I was like, well, if I'm going to go with Magearna and Manaphy pretty much every cycle, which I probably will, then I need a good E tier, and Z Heal Bell on Licky Licky is so strong. Like, Z Heal Bell heals you fully and does Heal Bell, so I figure it's going to be a pretty good matchup there. And that is my team builder. That's pretty much it. We got the squad going. I think we're going to make some progress and hopefully win the league this year. Thank you.